At 28,
Yeah.
you've made money, lost money, difficult time with family.
Home was chaos. Everything felt like a favor. A lot of things were basically taken out of proportion. The next thing was go and join NYS. I was going to find a way to put myself through law school. I ran away from home. We had an abandoned sort of building, no water, no electricity. They had to go and get water from the river. That's where I basically ended up going to live. The reason as to why I wanted to do law was I thought I could help people that were being taken advantage of by large organizations.
Peter Wachira is a man who's made a habit of turning personal struggle into active solutions. What carried him from a boy with no clear path is something harder to name. Peter takes us on a journey of survival, courage, and the unexpected turns that define us. 22 years old, wanting to start a business, but you haven't done the basic stakeholder management. You're not afraid of setting up things.
No, no, I wanted to set up a nightclub. December 16th, we opened. December 22nd, we were shut down.
Quite good at losing.
I got auctioned. I was taken to court. I was in debt. I was down to zero.
Peter Wachira, welcome to the Nitpicker Podcast.
Thank you so much, Carol.
We'll take it from the top. You grew up in Dandora Phase 5 and ended up somewhere along the way in Lamu. Could you tell us about that journey? How does a young man from Dandora Phase 5 end up in Lamu?
Yeah, so I was born in Dandora Phase 5. And what happened was 2007, we had the post-election violence that happened in Kenya. So at the time, my grandmother was basically based in Lamu. And so we were able to move there to escape the violence. And that is how I found myself in Lamu.
Who's we?
So my mom and myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was chaos going on in Dandora Phase 5. Were you in any physical mortal danger?
It was chaotic. I mean, we all remember post-election violence, and we know that areas like Dandora were the hardest hit. So we were able to get out before it got really, really bad.
And so your grandmother says, come over to Lamu.
Yeah.
What was that like? Very different. So Dandora's urban, noisy, chaotic. How old were you then?
It was 2007, I should have been 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember that move? What do you feel?
I remember the move. It was exciting. It was exciting at first. I mean, it's Lamu. You grew up in Dandora. You've never seen an ocean, so you get this chance. You take. We went by bus, so we get to Lamu. It's an island. You get to go on a boat for the first time. So as a child, it was really, really exciting.
And Lamu, the mainland or the island itself?
The island.
No cars, nothing. Donkeys.
Nothing. Just donkeys walking barefoot because it was Shella. So it was a beautiful experience.
What was your grandmother doing in Shella?
So she had a small guest house that she used to operate, and so my mom joined her, and we started doing the same thing. Yeah.
So I'm noticing a Kidogo accent. How does a guy from Dandora Phase 5 just blend in?
Yeah. So what happened was, when we went to Lamu, I joined a school called Lamu Amani Academy. Now the challenge with Lamu is that the educational standards were not necessarily the best, and so you'd find that I was doing 844 then. The top performing KCP student would be getting 200 something marks, which did not necessarily make sense. So
200 out of
500. So it was bad. So to sort of like give me a better opportunity and give us a better opportunity at better education standards, there was a school called Kijani Primary School. So it was basically a school for expats within the island. So expats would take their kids there. It was
expats being, we've got some people here who are on Twitter FM.
So expats basically being foreign nationals working on the island. Okay. So these are also it was also for extremely wealthy individuals within the island. So the people who had kids and owned them. The major hotels within the island. In fact, the school was owned by a hotel that was right next to that was started by the owner of the hotel for the sole purpose of being able to provide quality education to his kids, and there being no schools that could support that. So it was an IGCSE sort of based curriculum.
So it's what we'd call group of schools, very posh.
It wasn't posh. It was actually the size of this room. It was like 20 kids, the whole school. So we got a chance to, my grandmother negotiated some sort of scholarship of some sort. Like we were paying extremely discounted fees to near non-existent. I think to some extent they also just wanted to support people within the community. So we got the chance, and I think 70% of the school were white kids. And the challenge was, given that I was from Dandora, I used to say things like, instead of saying three, I'd say diri, and you can imagine they can be bullies. So subconsciously, as a child, because of the bullying, I started speaking more like them because I was trying to fit in. So that is how I ended up leaving the island with an accent.
And you left the island when too?
I left the island in 2011.
Yeah.
So it was back and forth when I joined high school, Liki Hill School in Nanyuki. Yeah.
And that started a whole new life in Nanyuki.
Yes. The family literally moved down to Nanyuki.
Again with your mom and also your grandmom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was that like?
I mean, Nanyuki was cold for one. You just come from Lamu, and so a little bit older. Lamu had no cars; only had one car, which belonged to the DC, and used to walk barefoot. And so moving to Nanyuki, it was what you call that, there were cars at least. The town was definitely bigger, and I was just joining high school. So when I joined high school, I'd tell people, I'm from Lamu, and no one would be like, no, you're not from Lamu. Where's the accent? Where's the Swahili accent? And so I think up to date, maybe some people do not believe that I spent a good portion of my childhood in Lamu, but it was a beautiful experience.
It wasn't easy though, that move to Nanyuki, from a life perspective. Something happened to your mom along the way?
Yes. I lost my biological mom when I was in I think Form 3, if I'm not mistaken. And so I was getting taken care of fully by my grandmother, who I would refer to as my mom in this instance.
Yeah. All right. That couldn't have been easy.
No, I mean, when you're a young child, a young man, so to speak, and you get taken in by your grandmother, and we know how grandmothers can be, you're under her care, under her rule, and so there's this aspect of being an outsider to some extent, because you were basically taken in, right? So there's always a sense of you might not necessarily belong in that environment, which of course has ramifications later on in life. And so I think that was one of the hardest things, where it was, well, we're doing you a favor. So you were always on the edge. Anything could happen, any mistake, and it would be, we'll send you back to Dandora. And so that was life constantly.
So there's an idle threat. Was in the background with regards to your continuity in the family. Yeah. How did that impact then how you related in school, what you did after school?
I mean, it was interesting. So my grandmother was married to a very nice guy called Leonard, who was more or less like a father figure to me. He was Swedish. And so in school, there was this notion, sisi ni watoto wa wazungu. And unfortunately, when we left school and came back home for the holidays, we'd farm. So it was, you leave school, go back home, you're farming. We used to leave, I think around 500 meters or less than a kilometer from the school. It was a boarding school. But I think we got visited during the entire time I was in high school, maybe once or I think twice. At max, and my grandmother only came once. So it was difficult, I can say. And in terms of impacting my life to date, I mean, there's so many impacts. There's so many things that I do today. It causes issues, right? So you get abandonment issues because it was a very high conflict environment. I do not like conflict, any form of conflict. So I tend to shy away from it. Difficult conversations, it impacts the way that I lead, the way that I interact with people, right? So if you come against me or do something that is not right, I will take a lot of time before I actually air it out, of course, which strains the relationship even further, and it leads to an outburst, which is not necessarily something that you want. You don't want a leader that is just busts out and is like, so.
And the conflicts are with your cousins or uncles. So set the scene for us, because then you've lost your mom, you've come into high school, Your grandmother's moved with her husband to Nanyuki. Sounds to me like there wasn't such a nurturing environment. You were in high school for the most of the time and unvisited. So where would the conflict arise with? Because were there other siblings of your mother? Were there other cousins?
Yeah. So I mean, we were taken in, myself and my uncle. We were the same age. He was like 3 years older than me, so I refer to him as my cousin. And so basically, the conflict was not between us as much as we did not relate as well. We were two different people in terms of personality. It was always like you dread going home because home was chaos, right? The house that we lived in was a bungalow, right? But we had like a wooden sort of like setup that we were sort of like living in. So everything felt like a favor. Any small thing, and you're a child basically, right? So you're definitely going to make mistakes and things like that. But a lot of things were basically taken out of proportion, I would say. So for a small mistake, the price would be high. I think that like I use my glasses. I need them every day, and the one small mistake would be my glasses getting shattered or broken, and so I'd have to go for weeks or months without being able to see, just as a form of punishment. So you can imagine the conflict was within my grandmother and the kind of relationship that we basically had.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what then happens when you graduate from high school? So you've grown up in a very difficult environment. What happens when you graduate from high school? I can imagine not being able to see would also impact your academic performance.
Yeah. So I think one thing is I was one of those. So I recently realized that I have ADHD. I didn't know that.
ADHD
yes.
is an acronym for
attention deficit
hyperactive disorder.
Yes.
Okay. And how does it manifest?
So poor attention.
Okay.
Right. You struggle with things like time. So ADHD is just basically you need adrenaline, right? And so sometimes you wait up until the last minute. That's when you are able to get enough adrenaline to be able to get something done. So being in school as someone who has ADHD and at the same time is unable to see, right? So you can imagine, no matter how close I get to the front of the class where I'm on the front row, the teacher will still write something on the blackboard. I won't be able to see it. So for me, certain lessons meant teacher would walk in and I just take a novel, right? I couldn't concentrate and I couldn't see. So I just take a novel and I'd push myself during exam periods. So I was lucky enough to be able to grasp things really, really fast. And so during exam periods, that's when I'd sort of like study really, really hard. And I'd be able to at least pass.
So you procrastinate until the last minute.
Yes,
that's how it manifests.
Yes, that is purely ADHD.
So you managed to pass your exams?
Yes, I managed to pass my exams. Not to the extent. So the challenge is with ADHD is that, and the way that I was in school, I only took things that mattered seriously, right? So there were certain things that not necessarily mattered to me. I didn't care about certain exams because they had no impact whatsoever, right? So I was very selective. I didn't care about certain subjects because they were not necessarily going to impact me.
Like which ones?
Like mathematics. I remember we were having a conversation with one of my maths teachers, and I basically said, so I wanted to become a lawyer. And I said, the only place where I will need to do maths is when I'm counting my money, and that's addition, subtraction, division, and that's all I need to know. And so all these things... That
could have gone down very well.
No, it did not. It did not. But for the subjects that I cared about, I was basically topping the school, and in some instances even topped the county. So I knew that for me to become a lawyer, I knew that I needed to study English, to study history. So those ones I cared about. Yeah. Those ones I really studied.
But you still need math. There's a minimum grade in math that you still need to get into law school.
So for me, all I cared about was that.
Get the minimum
grade. And when people are setting targets, that is what I set. I didn't even try and sort of like shoot for the moon. I was just like, this is all I need and this is all I'm going to get.
Did you pass?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I got an overall B, which was...
Not bad.
Yeah.
So you get into law school?
So before that, so I wanted to become a lawyer, like I mentioned. And what happened was our family was very conflicted. My grandmother felt that me getting my law degree would mean that I would be able to I would join the other side of the family and basically go after family property. And so she was really against me becoming a lawyer. I think at the back of my, there's a lot of betrayal that has basically happened within the family. And so there was always tussle around who inherits what and who does what. So the family was divided in between my grandmother's side and this other side. And I was taken from this other side and basically
Which is
taken
the
in.
other side now?
So my grandmother had sisters.
Yes.
And she was fortunate enough to be able to do well in life.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the things that we basically had were in her custody, which was causing conflicts with the sisters on this side.
Okay.
So my mom was the daughter of her sister, right? So when I was basically taken in, I was being taken in from this other side.
Yes.
So me getting a law degree might have meant that I would go back to this other side.
That's right.
And the other thing was, like I mentioned, I was taken in by my cousin. And so immediately after high school, he left and he went back to this other side, right? So he went back to Dandora. And so she felt that, you know what, this Peter's going to do the same thing. He's going to become a lawyer and he's going to go back to this other side. And she didn't know what that...
The other side meaning the other sisters?
Yes, the other sisters.
Okay.
And she didn't know what that would mean for her.
So she's really not your grandmother, she's your grandmother's sister.
Yes.
She's your grandmother's sister.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I wanted to do law.
Okay.
She was not willing to support me joining law school. So what happened was she said that I needed to go back to high school, get an A. That is the only way that I would be able to do law. And so I was willing to do it. Honestly, for me, I feel like if I can't do something one way, I'll just find another way to do it. And so it's like, okay, if I need to go back to school to become a lawyer, then that is exactly what I will do. And so we toyed with the idea for some time, and we even started scouting for schools. But then I was just like, when I looked at when I started speaking to friends and to peers who did maybe worse than me, and they were able to sort of like proceed, I just felt like it wasn't right? And so she wanted me to do business. At the same time, the environment was extremely, because now I was home every day.
Yeah.
And so I had to wait before I could join high school. And the next thing was go and join NYS. And I was just like, my ambitions did not necessarily allow me to want to go in that direction. I felt like I deserved more than what NYS had to offer at the time. Because what we were seeing was NYS was people on the road cleaning and everything else. And here I was thinking, I've done well enough to deserve a chance to go through campus. So I left home, right? So I was 17. I ran away from home. I figured I was going to find a way to put myself through law school. And so I started scouting for jobs, and there was this pyramid scheme companies that existed. I think they still existed it. And they were like, earn 30,000. And in my head, I was like, if I earn 30,000 a month, law school costs around 70K. Then I live in Nairobi. I can probably figure out a way to pay for law school.
By this time now, you had figured out you want to go to University of Nairobi or Moi or whichever law school there was. You'd figured out a plan.
Yes, I'd figured out a plan. So the thing was, I left home. I was I was going to get this job.
Yeah.
And then once I got the job, I was going to work for a year. And then I was going to put myself through school. And I was also starting to figure out around scholarship opportunities that I could basically take on. So the challenge was when I left home, I had to sustain myself.
And find a place to live.
So the place that I found was, we had an abandoned sort of like building that belonged to my great grandmother. It was just basically a brick with there's no water, no electricity. It was the washrooms or a pit latrine. So you had to go and get water from the river to be able to do anything.
This is in Nanyuki town?
This is in Nanyuki town. So that's where I basically ended up going to live, because I left home, there's literally nowhere to go. And it was abandoned, so no one was visiting. And so what I started working. I did Mjango for some time, and I remember when I was doing Mjango, there was the owner of the establishment, and I was skinny, and I was like, doesn't this guy see that there's this skinny kid wearing glasses, carrying rocks? And I was naive enough to think that if I talked to him, maybe he'd be willing to get me to go through school. And I learned early on that it's every man for himself out here, and no one really cares unless there's something in it for them. And so I did that. It didn't necessarily work. I think I did it for like 2 weeks, and I was like, no, this is not it.
Backbreaking work.
Yes, it was difficult. And so I started looking for other jobs, and this is where the pyramid scheme company basically came in, where they were saying they were going to give you 30,000, and so I joined. And I started. So the setup was, you come in, you're given plates to sell, right? So you'd come to the office. It was just a room. You do your morning things, and then you get a bag, and you go out. So when you're starting, you have a trainer for like 2 weeks, and so your trainer would take you. You'd go from homestead to homestead, and you'd be selling plates with the bag behind you. And I did that. And the whole idea was, if you were able to, once you finished training, you would graduate to become a trainer. Once you became a trainer, you were supposed to get 5 people to join and stay in the company. So you remember how I was trained by someone? I needed to find 5 other people who would basically come in. Now, because I was there for other reasons, like I was there because I wanted to get to management and I wanted to pay for my fees. I was extremely resilient. So I was like, I'm going to push through this. And so I started selling plates. And
door to door sales.
Yes, with a bag. And you had to wear a tie, and you had to be officially dressed. And so...
And you're still living in this abandoned house?
Yeah, I'm still living in this abandoned house. So it was, I remember there was a time I was sitting in a barbershop, and someone passed and was like, you see that guy in the tie, you know him, he's a broker, he's a hawker, sorry. He sells plates. So basically we did that for, I did that for a couple of months. I was able to get my team of 5, but I was barely 18 at this point. And so
is it a commission structure? So you get a commission for the number of plates that you sell?
Yeah. So so you'd sell a plate was going for around 100 bob, and for 100 bob Monday to Friday you'd get 15 shillings per plate that you sold. But on Saturday you'd get 20 shillings. So for me, my sales strategy was I would not sell as hard during the week, and I'd wait for Saturday. And Saturday I'd just sell everything, because the commission made sense then. And so at least that was able to sustain and make things make sense. There was a joke in the company that I don't sell up until Saturday. That is when I'm selling. I figured there was no point in working as hard all through the week only to end up with nothing, because you had to. The way it was structured, where we were selling plates, you needed to sell plates to people who could not access town, right? Because why is someone buying plates from someone if they can just go to the next shop and buy this plate or buy this knife? And so you had to go to really remote places, the kind of place where you get to a matatu gets to its last stop, you get into these pro boxes that just have carrying like 15 people, and then it gets to its last stop, and one house is here, and the next house is like a 10-minute walk away.
So you're in deep shags, you're in interior.
Yes,
like
you're interior.
Yeah,
that's where you're selling, and you had to go with zonality, know which area is because a lot of the people there were just basically farmers. So you had to know, okay, this side of town, they must be they must be harvesting potatoes, so they have money. So you'd target that area. We had like a structure of moving, and when you got to a point where you would start selling, and then each time you go into a house, they're like, oh, your friend was just here, and you don't know who's selling. So it's like you had to find a way to go really, really far and then start working backwards. And when we ran out of areas, we now have to move farther away out of Nanyuki town. So instead of going to areas like Narumoro, which was like 50 shillings, we now have to go to places like Meru just to be able to sell. So you had to wake up very early in the morning, be out at like 4, so you have enough time to get to.
Do they give you bus fare?
Oh, no, that was all on you. That was all on you.
So this 15 shilling commission that you're making, part of it is going to your bus fare.
Yeah. That's why I wasn't really during the weekdays I wasn't going to far territories. I was just sticking to areas that are close. All I cared about was I able to make enough to feed myself on that day and pay for my bus fare. And on Saturdays is when I'd be like, okay, now this makes sense. Let me work harder, go to a farther location where we've not necessarily touched, and just sell more. It made more money. It made more sense that way.
But you stumbled upon a problem which you tried to solve in the process of selling these plates.
Yes. So what happened was because of the area that I basically lived in, the place that I lived in, again, no access to clean water, so you had to get water from the river. If anyone's drunk water from the river, they know that you will drink it; it'll still not quench your thirst for some reason. Secondly, it's the same place where you have your whatever you're using to collect water. Down the stream, there's someone who's washing clothes. So if someone is washing clothes in that river, that means that up the stream there must be someone who's basically doing something else, right? So I ended up getting a big sickly around that, and then one time I got typhoid and amoeba at the same time. I was
excruciating.
It was. I was going through. I woke up in the morning. I was feeling sickly. But I knew I had to go to work, right? This was hand to mouth sort of like thing. If I don't go to work, I'm going to eat. So I knew I had to go to work. So I got to work, took a matatu, went to the area where I was selling. And so I'd go into a house, sell, and then I'd have to rest for like 30 minutes, just seated down because my body could not take it. I was fatigued, I was tired, I was in pain. So that whole day I sold one plate only. So the challenge that you also faced was when you're selling plates, you have this big bag and it's really remote areas. So you'd get somewhere and you'd ask for water and they'd give you like water directly from the well, no filtration process. And so you could get sickly. And so on that day, on the way back, I'd only sold one plate, which was 100 bob. That was 15 shillings for me. That was not enough for fare. Funny enough, the conductor did not ask me for fare. I think he just forgot or something, and so at least I was not in a bad situation. And so during this whole process, I managed to get my team of 5, first person in the company to raise their team of 5, and unfortunately they promoted the guy who trained me because they felt I was too young. I had just come in for several months and there I was already. And so I don't think I'd give a 17 or 18-year-old a whole office to run, because that's what you'd got as a manager. So I understood them to some extent. But at the same time, I don't believe that we should be limited to opportunities because of our age. I think everything, every reward that we get is based off the work that we basically do. And so with that, I was disappointed, and I just basically said, I don't think this is it for me.
Hold on, Peter, you've left us hanging. So you're sick. You remember you before we move forward. So you come back. You're sick as a dog. How do you get out of that?
So I had to ask the manager of the office to help me with some money. So he gave me like 200. I went to the pharmacy, got some meds. I was out of commission for like 2 days because I couldn't go to work. So that was terrible. But I was still adamant on the results that of I want to become a lawyer. And so when I realized that this path was not necessarily going to work out for me, I was disappointed, and that is how I left the company. Not because I couldn't hit whatever metrics they'd set, but because they just figured that they should not give me the opportunity, and I believe in equal opportunities. And so at this time, I'm still facing this whole water situation, and me getting sick, and the fact that I wasn't able to work for 2 days. Meant that I was also went without food for 2 days. I was really, really upset. And so I was like, okay, there must be a better way to go around this. And so I started playing around with the idea, or just doing basic research of how am I able to get clean water from the water that I get from the river, right? And so the biggest challenge was, there are people who basically sell clean water in cans and everything else.
Yeah.
But I used to wake up I used to be out of the house at 6 a.m. in the morning, and by the time I'm back in the house, it's 10. So there's no way of me to find these people or get water. So I had to rely on water from the river. And so when I left the company, I started working as a waiter. If anyone's been to Nanyuki, there's a place called Kongomaito.
Oh yes, at the Kongomaito, the
Yes,
Nyama Choma joint.
Nyama Choma
Yes,
joint, that's where I used to work. And if you were there during the years that I was working there, it was a nice place, but it wasn't the best place to basically work.
no, it was a joint, and it still is. Very popular.
It is.
Especially with the Christian group, because it's a bar. I mean, not a bar. I beg your pardon. It's a Nyama Choma joint that doesn't provide alcohol.
That's true.
At least at that time.
No, I don't think they do. What they do is that at the time we were going in, they were facing a lot of competition, so like they were scaling down at some extent. So yeah, I used to work as a waiter. You'd make 200 a day. That was 6,000 a month, and it was better, I believe. Again, I still wanted to do law, so I was trying to figure out how am I going to. That did not work. How am I going to get myself into law school? And so while I was waiting, so I used to wear this half sweaters, half black sweaters. I had a black one that was long sleeve, and I didn't have money to buy another one. So I was like, this is going to suffice. So the supervisors were wearing the long ones. So a lady approached me, and she wanted to set up an eggs depot in Nanyuki. She had a farm in Thika, and she basically wanted to bring in eggs. And so she was like, oh, you must be a supervisor here. You must know certain things. And if you call me a supervisor, I'm going to say, yeah, that's fine. I am. And so because I wanted to hear what she had to say and what she basically had to offer. And so what she said, she wanted to set up shop in Nanyuki, and because as a supervisor of some sort, I should know where the suppliers and everything is how everything is basically going. I just basically told her, I'll figure it out. So she gave me the task of finding out how the egg business or the egg markets in Nanyuki basically looked like, and also at the same time finding her a shop. And so when she came back the second time, I gave her the information. So I went around markets, went to supermarkets, went to hotels, asking around how they get their eggs, where do they get their suppliers from, and also just asking the guys who sell eggs, who roll around with egg carts, where they get their eggs, what price they get their eggs at.
You're doing market research for this lady.
I'm doing market research.
This lady walked into Kongomaito, was having half a kilo of gombe.
Yeah.
And dropped you this question.
Yes.
And you went and did all of this market research.
Yeah.
And she says, I'll be back in a week or whatever.
Yes, that's what she said.
Okay.
And once I had the information, she came back and I relayed the information. So the next thing she said, I'm looking for someone who can work at the shop. And she basically asked what are the salary ranges that were there. So it was 12,000 to work at a shop. And I basically said, you know what, I don't like this job very much, so I'm actually willing to come and work. And she was like, no, but you must be doing well. And I was like, no, I think there must be something better. I've done the market research, and I think these are ways. So I gave us a whole strategy around how we can mass sell eggs. I'm not a believer of sitting and waiting for customers to come to you. I believe that you should do everything to go after the customer. And again, I was used to hawking plates in really remote areas. Exactly. And I was like, if I can sell plates, how hard can eggs be? And so when we were coming up with a structure, I basically said, remember, I was used to earning in commission when I was doing sales. I was like, I want to earn 20 shillings per tray. So for every tray that I basically sell, you give me 20 shillings. In my head, from the conversations that I basically had, I knew that when you're setting up a sort of like a depot of some sort, it wasn't a very big shop, actually. We used to handle around 300 trays at a go. I just figured that I would need to find people that I could supply to. So when I asked around the rate, when I asked for the rates that other egg distributors were basically receiving their eggs at, and given that she was getting them from Thika, I realized that we were cheaper. And so I realized that what I could do is I could sell directly to the suppliers who were selling the eggs. So the other thing that I basically did was I started walking around and going to supermarkets and trying to distribute the eggs. But with supermarkets, they'd ask you for a business card. So leave me your contacts and I'll get back to you. And I had no business card. So a friend of mine owned a cyber cafe. And I just basically went to him and I was like, let's design. I did computer when I was in high school. So I just asked him for 30 minutes on the computer. I designed a business card. And so the shop was called Dana Eggs. And I was like, so I didn't know whether to put salesman, what title to put. So I put sales director. And I figured if I just put eggs as the only thing we're distributing, it looks like, this is a small operation and everything else. I was like, eggs, chicken, gizzards, everything to do with poultry. Because supermarkets, they were all about presentation, right? So if you're going to go to a supermarket manager and get them to give you a tender, sort of like supply something, you needed to look serious. And so a salesperson was not going to cut it. Sales director made more sense. And at the same time, you needed to show that you had a big operation. So I figured I just put eggs, chicken, gizzards, and everything else. And so I started going to the supermarkets and giving out the cards and to hotels as well. And so the agreement or the arrangement that we had with my supplier is that she'd come in, she'd bring the eggs on a Sunday. That's when she'd deliver everything. And I was supposed to bank all the proceeds because I was earning on commission. I had to take my cut and then bank all the proceeds. So I was supposed to bank the proceeds on a Sunday. So because I was dealing with a lot of a lot of wholesalers. I figured if I sold 100 trays and I was making 20 shillings, I could do free delivery. So I had a lot of things working. And then I started targeting, as much as I had people that were buying eggs in bulk, I also needed daily customers. And I figured the best customers would be the guys who go around selling eggs, boiled eggs. And so I'd walk up to them, I'd go to the stages where they basically were. I'd give them the card and then I'd tell them, give me 2 eggs. And then I'd tell them, if you come to my shop, Johnny, I'll take 2 more eggs, right? So over time, they started, they sell around 4 trays in a day. So if you get 10 of them, you're selling 40 trays in a day. And so I'd hook them I'll buy 2, you come to my shop, I'll eat 2 more, right? And so I started. So
you took your skills from your
yes.
from your pyramid plate business, and you brought them into your sales distribution, your egg distribution business.
Yes. And so, I was selling out eggs by Wednesday. I had literally no eggs. And so one time, there's a manager from a supermarket called Shiani in Nanyuki. He called me and he was like, you distribute our eggs, but I also see that you're selling chickens and gizzards on your card. And I was like, yes. We do that as well.
Fake it till you make it.
You have to. So this time I'm trying to figure out how I can save enough to be able to put myself through school.
Have you moved out of the abandoned building yet?
No. I still lived there. It just didn't make sense. I was trying to save. And I was like, whatever conditions I basically have to live in, I will live in. I will live through those conditions up until I'm able to save enough to at least pay for a full year. Yeah. And I figured that if I pay for a full year and I work hard enough, I can find scholarship opportunities that would be able to take me through the rest of the way. And
are you solving for the water problem? Because remember, you still have that water problem that you're thinking through.
Yes. So during this period, I'm also researching through the water problem. So as much as I'm doing the eggs, during my time, when I didn't have time, I just do a lot of research. I reached out to a company called Porters for Peace, based in Nicaragua. They were doing water filters made out of clay and sawdust, and basically would apply colloidal silver at the end when they were done with production, and which would eliminate around 99% of germs. So I started having conversations with them while I was still going through the eggs phase.
And this is where, you'd go to a cyber cafe and do all of this research? Because I'm assuming you don't have a smartphone at this time.
No. So my friend, again from the cyber cafe, so I'd go there. I didn't have a smartphone or a laptop or anything. I had this, at the time I bought a smartphone, but it was really, really small. And so it had 4 gigabytes. I had a 4 GB memory card. So every evening I'd go and I'd get him to put a movie for me. And he was always frustrated with me because I was like, the movies would surpass 4 GB and then it would be a whole sort of dance. And so he knew me as a guy with a small phone who always comes. But over time we became friends. So I'd go to his cyber cafe, or I'd just be at his cyber cafe after work.
What year was this, Peter?
This should have been 2016, not 2015, 15, 16, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so while going through the research around trying to provide clean water, I reached out to Porters for Peace, and they actually were sending down reps. So I got a chance to meet them, and we had this sort of like workshop to learn how to make the filters, how to make the kiln. Started looking for suppliers for the buckets. And so, but still, I didn't have money to like put into this operation. And so for them, it was more like a community-based project. So it was a nonprofit. And so what happened was, because I started selling gizzards, from the gizzards and poultry products, I started making more money. And so I ended up getting a freezer, and my, what's her name? My manager, the lady who owned the shop, was like, I think you're doing well. Let's become partners. Let's go 50-50, because you have this shop over here. You're making money off it. So you pay rent equal, I pay rent equal. I was also I had a lot of things that I was trying to figure out. And so that is when I decided I came down to Nairobi, and I went to MKU. And I went to
MKU is?
Mount Kenya University. Mm-hmm. So I went to MKU Nyeri. I put down my application to study law. And then the school was in Parklands. So I took a matatu from Nairobi, from Nanyuki to Nairobi. And when I got to town, I didn't know where the stage for Parklands was. I didn't know where the school was. There was no Google Maps that was helping me at the time.
Was this your first time in Nairobi?
As an adult, yes, because Dandora is still Dandora, right? So it was my first time. It was my first time. And so I got to stage, and I knew the school was in Parklands. So I hopped onto Parklands, matatu heading towards Parklands. I did not know where to alight. And so I think some Indian guy just alighted, and I was like, you know what, this must be. So I didn't have the whole concept of the different stages, right? So for me, it was, this matatu is for Parklands. So if this guy is alighting here, then we must be in Parklands, right? And so where I was we alighted at I've forgotten the name, but it's right on the way to MKU. So I got off, and I just started walking, and then all of a sudden I see MKU, and I'm like, oh. In my head, I'm like, there must be God. So I went in and made my application, and I came back down to Nanyuki. I'd raised enough to be able to pay for my fees for the first year. At the same time, there was a competition called the Green Enterprise Challenge that had just come to Nanyuki. And one of the guys who was an organizer for the competition, not an organizer per se, but basically promoting the competition, it was for young people who wanted to set up ventures or enterprises within and they needed support. So you were going to get a grant of 1 million if you won the competition. And I was, they were paying 600 a day just to attend the training. And I was like, okay, I think I can, let me just go and do this and see what it's all about. So I hired my then best friend's wife to come and work at the shop. So I went through the trainings. While I was going through the trainings, I started off, I started an application that was more geared towards poultry farming, because I was seeing eggs and I was in the business, and I thought it would be a very viable business. And then when I realized that, you know, it was a social sort of like impact challenge, I went back to what I really want to solve for is water, right? I wanted to solve for water. I wanted to provide water filters. And so I continued sort of like reaching out to the guys from Porters for Peace. And we were able to set up my first prototype, and I decided to start pitching the water filter. So I figured if I have 1 million, then I would have enough to get raw materials, get the right people to be able to do it. And so I went through the competition. I was position 2 in Laikipia. And then we had a chance to go to Nairobi for the finals. So they were taking the 2 best people, the top 2 from, I think, 8 counties. We were 20 of us in total. So,
and you're pitching this water filter made of clay.
Made of clay.
Okay.
Yeah. So we get to Nairobi. We put up in somewhere in Karen, and we go through like a 2-week crash course on everything: finance, go to markets, just everything operations. So it was their way of capacity building. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, we would end pitching as well. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, we'd go for the finals. I lost terribly at the finals. I wasn't top anything. But what they did was they basically gave us a scholarship to go through Tangaza University and do like an EMBA of some sort.
What's an EMBA?
It's like an entrepreneurial MBA, so it's more hands-on, right? It's the MBA without the degree, and it's for operators basically. So I got a scholarship. I basically took it on.
So you're getting a scholarship to do the EMBA. You're running a business in Nanyuki that you've left your best friend's wife operating. You're on standby to join Mount Kenya University Law School in a year's time.
Yeah, I joined actually. I'd already started. So I was juggling a lot of things. And so this is where the challenge basically came in. The business stopped doing well. So the egg business, yes, it stopped doing
naturally.
well.
I mean, the main sales director has
left.
The
sales director
has
left,
gone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it started doing terribly. So one time, my supplier calls me. I wasn't in the county, and I've not received my payments or my deposits for the past 2 weeks, and I was shocked because I was receiving my my share. And so I went back down to Nanyuki and I tried to figure out what was going on. And so the lady that we had given the job stated that there are a lot of people who had debts, who'd taken eggs on credit. And when you try and follow up with these people, they're nowhere to be found.
Yes, stories are jabba.
Yes, stories are jabba. So I figured that she must be, they must have sold eggs and sort of like kept the money. But because I had an obligation to my supplier, I basically took it on, and I was, it's my responsibility. I will. It was 200,000 that I owed her. I will figure out a way how to pay you this money. So the competition was still going on. We were waiting for the finals. I figured if I could win the million, then I could take the 200 and just pay off and continue running my business.
And you're spending money even before you've received it.
Yes. But I learned the hard way, and I lost. But I still had the obligation to pay her. And so now I've lost my source of income, so I can continue paying for fees. And it turned into this whole altercation, police case. And I promised to pay back. So I went back home to my grandmother's, and I started farming cabbages to be able to offset that particular.
So she took you back. Remember, you ran away when you were 17.
Yeah.
To live in an abandoned building.
Yeah.
So what's that conversation like with your grandmother?
It was not the easiest, right? So I was coming back as a failure. Like I'd gone out. All the things that I wanted to do, I was not necessarily able to do. And so there was a lot of scorn as well, right? And so it was, if you thought we were doing you a favor before, now we're really doing you a favor. So it was terrible. A lot of backhanded comments and everything else. You thought you were better. You thought you could get things through. And so she used to call me Wakili just to taunt me. Yeah. So I started farming the cabbages. The whole idea was I'd farm cabbages and I'd be able to pay. If I did a whole, because of the portion that I'd gotten to sort of like farm the cabbages, I'd make 70,000. So I needed to do 2 cycles to be able to make not 3 cycles to be able to offset that debt, and that would take the whole year, basically. And so during the same time, I'd lost the competition, but I'd gotten the chance to do the EMBA. And there was no way to help her. Like when I told her I have this EMBA that I really want to do, and she was like, "No, you're not going to do it." And so again, I had to make a decision. I was like, was I going to farm cabbages, or was I going to actually go after this EMBA that I felt could really impact the business and what I basically wanted to do? And so I left home again. And of course, the conditions were you cannot come back, etc. so I left and I went to now work at my friend's cyber cafe. As it wasn't really working, it was just I'd go there and hope something would open up during the course of the day. Someone would need a CV done or something, and I'd charge them like 100, or we'd charge you 150 to open your Gmail accounts, and we'd ask for like if you want a Gmail account, we'd ask what's your ID number. We'd make it like to this, it's very, very complicated.
Major KYC.
Yes. Yeah. So we turned it into this complicated thing, and you'd be able to charge like 150. And so the whole thing was, the MBA was sponsored. So during the time that I had to be in Nairobi for around 2 weeks, around a week basically, 1 week every month you had to be present. They would pay for your accommodation and your meals. But now I needed to raise enough money for fare, to and fro, and so I'd work for 3 weeks to make enough to be able to go to Nairobi for the course.
And where would you stay in those 3 weeks?
So they would give you accommodation.
No, in Nanyuki. Where would you stay in Nanyuki?
I was staying at a friend's. Okay. I was staying at a friend's, and so I'd do that. I was able to make enough. I'd go to Nanyuki for the training, and to Nairobi for the training, and then I finished the training. And so there was, I knew enough how to set up, how to run and operate a proper company, but I still needed capital. And so during this period, there was a competition called Kwese Go Getters that has just come up. I saw it on Facebook by a guy that I really admire called Strive Masiwa. So I was following him through.
Who's Strive Masiwa?
Strive Masiwa is a billionaire and philanthropist. He's a founder of Econet. Econet is similar to Safaricom here. So they're more operational southern parts of Africa.
He's Zimbabwean?
He's Zimbabwean, yeah. Okay. Exiled from Zimbabwe around maybe 30 years ago now. So it's a telecommunications company. I think here they do liquid telecom or liquid intelligent technologies. So they supply internets. So he's also a very godly person, right? So he was exiled because he was not willing to play ball with the government by bribing officials just to be able to get certain licenses. So I'd follow him. He used to have this post that he put on Facebook around business, how to run a business, leadership information. So I really adored the guy. So when they put out the competition, I just basically applied. There were 4,000 applicants that applied, and we were narrowed down to semi-finalists. And so for the semi-finalists, we had to do a video and just basically state what we are building and everything, what we want to build and everything else. And after doing the video, I got selected as a finalist. And so because it was Kwese, and Kwese was, at the time, Kwese was sort of, they had like a company that was an entertainment sort of like company, like DSTV similar. And so they were like, okay, because you're a semi-finalist, we're now going to come and install Kwese and we'll pay for a whole year. And they came and installed Kwese in a house that had no TV, nothing. So I had a dish. I think that building, the dish should still be there.
Yeah.
The competition was supposed to be in South Africa. So I became a finalist. We were 12 finalists, 6 guys.
And what were you pitching in this competition?
I was pitching the water filters.
Okay.
As I was trying to get capital for the water filters.
Yeah.
They were going to give $100K US as a grant. And so I figured that would be enough to do a lot of things. I'd be able to, put myself go back to school. And so competition was supposed to be held in South Africa. So I needed a passport to be able to go to South Africa, and I still needed a passport application was around 5,000. I still needed 5,000 to be able to get the prototype done. So I was able to raise 5,000, and I figured I'd rather be there, and it's okay if I'm not able to do with the prototype. And so what happened was I went to try and get my passport. They said my birth certificate was fake. And I wondered because I had my ID. So I was like, how do I have my ID and you're telling me my birth certificate is fake? And so my grandmother was, my birth certificate when I was getting my ID was changed to my grandmother as my biological mom. And so I had to go back to her and figure out how to get my birth certificates corrected. And she was like, okay, where are you going? And I told her, I'm going for this competition. And in my head, I remember she said, "Are you sure it's not Al-Shabaab that you're joining?" And it was just, okay, that is, so I had to figure out how to get my birth certificate in order. While going through this process, of course, we were running out of time. It took around well over a month to be able to get your passport. And so the competition was in December, November or December, I can't remember correctly.
What year was this?
This was 2017.
Yeah.
So competition was in December, and I couldn't get my passport. And at the last minute, what they did was they decided to move the competition to Nairobi. So last minute, few weeks to the competition, they were like, no, we're going to move the competition to Nairobi.
Just like that?
Yeah, I don't know what happened. They just decided to move it to Nairobi. And in my head, I'm like, if it's coming to Nairobi, there's no way that I'm not going to take this home. And so the 5,000, at least, I was able to now go and get a prototype, get the prototype done. So they bring the competition to Nairobi. They set us up at Sheraton, 4 Points, right here in Hurlingham. So we go there. We're supposed to get training for like 2 days. We actually get training from some really incredible people here. I remember at the time, when I looked at the prices of Sheraton, it was like 26,000 shillings a night. And I was like, you should have given me this money. It was what? We're going to spend 70,000 just on my accommodation. You should have given me the cash. And so, yeah, so I needed to go to the Westlands to get the prototype. It was being delivered to Westlands. And so the challenge that I basically had, I was supposed to go in the evening, but we were supposed to be meeting, having dinner with Stripe Masiva. So it was, I'd either go get the prototype or meet the guy who's supposed to change my life, so to speak. And so I decided I can wake up very early in the morning and go and get the prototype. And so when I was, after dinner, I went back to the hotel, and my phone fell in the toilet. And so that was the only way I could communicate with anyone. I went to a shop that was close by, tried to get rice, put it in the dustbin in the hotel, tried to see if I could revive it. It didn't necessarily work. And so the following morning there was, again, I wasn't very conversant with Nairobi. So I took a matatu to town and then took a matatu to Westlands. And when I got to Westlands, I went to a cyber, Googled the location of the place, and then I'd ask a cyber attendant to sort of help me use their phone so I could call and confirm. And so I did that twice because I was going from point A. Now I realized, okay, I'm here. Now I need to go to the next point. So I did that twice up until I got the prototype, and I went back to the competition was being held at Strathmore.
Strathmore University.
Yeah, Strathmore University. So I took a matatu, went back to.
How big is the prototype?
It's just it was a bucket. It was just a simple bucket with a filter inside. So I basically, I was walking around with a bucket. And so when I got to Strathmore, the security wouldn't let me in. I'm not a student. They know the competition, but remember all the other contestants had come in sort of like a bus and everything else. And so luckily someone saw me from the competition, one of the organizers, and was like, you should let that guy in. He's actually the only one representing Kenya. So I got in.
You've not tested your prototype?
No, I tested it.
Where?
I tested it. So we had it made since December, so I knew how it basically worked.
Okay.
So what happened when I was leaving Nanyuki, I wasn't able to carry it.
Okay.
So a friend of mine went and dropped it at one of their shops in Westlands because he was coming back down. The clay was fragile, so I didn't want to risk it with a matatu. Because it was a bucket and there was a clay filter inside. Anything could happen and it could break. So the friend was willing, because he was driving down to Nairobi, he basically brought it down and dropped it there, left it there for me to be able to find it. So I went, did the competition. I won the competition. It was life-changing, really interesting moments. And
so you won the $100,000?
Yeah, we won the $100,000. But so we win the competition. And part of the prize was you get a chance to work directly under Strive for several months. So I was really excited about that. And then sadly, you remember I mentioned that my grandmother had a husband. He was sick at the time in Aga Khan. So I was staying there basically. So after I left the competition, that is where I was staying because I was taking care of him in the hospital. And so we lost him at that point. I remember I told my grandmother, I've won. I didn't even tell her 10 million. That was the equivalent back then. I said, I was like, if I tell her 10 million, she'll probably think I'm crazy. So I said 5 million, and she just laughed at me. She was like, so me, I've not touched 5 million. You've won 5 million. And I said, yeah. She didn't believe me. And so I think she started believing me when she started seeing things moving different in my life. So after the competition, we went down to Zimbabwe and we worked there.
Where did you get a passport from?
So now I was able to get a passport. I think now with the what you call it had taken enough time because I had to go back to the birth certificate office and get my birth certificate. At least that was rectified, and then I was able to now go and get my passport. And because of the 5 million, and it was publicized in the newspaper, the money that I won, it was publicized in the newspaper, she was supportive enough to help with the passport. So,
and where's your application to MKU all this time? Remember, you've been accepted as a law student.
I'd done a few semesters, but because of the time when I ran out of money and the business had gone down, I wasn't able to proceed. So in my head, I was like, once I'm done with the competition, I have the prize money, I'll be able to set up the business, start operating it, and then I will also be able to continue with my school. So we went down to Zimbabwe, and we also got a chance to move around a bit, basically tailing Strive. When we were in Zimbabwe, I ended up getting a job offer from the company. So Strive was, there was a clean water initiative that they were running. Zimbabwe was going through a cholera outbreak at the time. And so they wanted to see if they could get my filters to support their cause. And so I was young. Unfortunately, I had to decline the offer because I won the competition when I was 19. So I turned 20 when I was in Zimbabwe during that period. So I was 20 years old. You're telling me to, come be one of the leaders of this Clean Water Initiative project. I didn't feel like I was well equipped enough. And at the same time, I didn't want to be in Zimbabwe. I felt like I wanted to solve this problem home where I basically felt it. And so I came back to Kenya, and we started the company.
What was the name of the company?
It was called a Remote Youth Venture. In short, Arrive. I came up with it randomly. A remote, because we were going to really remote areas to be able to provide these water filters. And then youth, because I was young, and so I was just venturing. So it was a remote youth venture.
You're 20 years old, with 10 million shillings in the bank. Never managed a business. Well, you've managed the egg business before.
Yes.
And you've managed people because you ran a pyramid scheme, and so you knew how to recruit and run a sales team.
So there I was. We started running the business. So our remote youth venture started doing well. What we started doing was that we were selling water filters for 3,000 shillings. We realized that the people that we were targeting were not able to afford 3,000 shillings as a one-off payment. So we started targeting. Our go-to market was basically working with chamas, as we call them today. So we'd find chamas. But the challenge was, how do we get these chamas, right? How do we get access to these chamas? How do they listen? At the same time, we thought if we worked with the chamas, because they have savings, they'll be able to purchase. But you find that, it's a merry-go-round of some sort. So they don't have, unless someone says, I'm not going to take my money this particular month. So we started working with microfinance institutions. So we figured most of these chamas were basically banking with an MFI of some sort. So we'd go to the MFI and we'd be like, can we have a partnership where we're able to supply, one, we get access to the contacts that you have that meet this criteria, ICP of some sort. And from there, we'd get the contacts. The MFI would pay us in advance, and it would be like a credit facility that the chama was basically getting. And so that is how we were able to distribute. So we moved from selling, from doing water filters only to also doing solar appliances and the likes. So just essential goods that were basically needed at home.
This is in the Nanyuki area?
Now this is in Nairobi. So now I've moved to Nairobi.
All right.
Yeah. So after winning the competition, I basically moved down to Nairobi, and so.
Did you patent this filter?
No, it wasn't mine to patent because I'd borrowed the technology from Porters for Base when they came down and they took us through training. So we started selling the filters. While we're going through that process, there was a company called Pure Aqua. So they basically wanted to have a non-profit sort of like within the country where they could help people get access to clean water. I personally, I am a believer of for-profit or sustainable enterprises that can provide a long-term impact. When I looked at people like Strive, the only reason as to why they've been able to sort of like impact so many people is because they build sustainable businesses, and that goes a long way, right? And we speak to the challenges that we have today, USAID pulling out of the market or the funding getting cuts. You realize that long-term solutions are just basically better. So when they reached out, they basically stated that they wanted to turn it into a nonprofit. They would fund us, and I decided to step down. So in my head, I was one. Yes, I really want this filter to get to as many people as possible, but I don't want to run an enterprise that is not sustainable. So I think this is also coming from the time that I spent with Strive. He basically said, you can become a billionaire selling plastic water bottles, right? And for me, I wanted to generate revenue and still impact people. Another thing that basically changed while I was going through this whole process, when I was selling water filters, I started interacting with the people that I wanted to serve as a lawyer. So the reason as to why I wanted to do law in the first place was I thought I could become sort of like an activist of some sort and help people that were being taken advantage of by large organizations. I realized that the people that I wanted to serve, these are the people that I was selling to directly at the time. These households, low-income households, they did not need legal services if they cannot put food on their table, if they cannot get medical, treatment, if they cannot get access to clean water even. And so my mindset shifted, and I figured, you know what, if I'm able to make enough money and build a business big enough, then I could hire lawyers and they could go out and fight for this cause that I basically want to fight for. And so I, switched. And so after leaving the company, I got a small exit. A small amount of money, and I started traveling a lot. So during this time, when I was moving around a lot, there's a company called Aqualeisure in Zimbabwe. So Aqualeisure, what they did was, when you went to Zimbabwe, and if you're living, let's say, Westlands, if you're interested in basketball, you'd know where all the basketball courts are. So if you want a tennis, you know where the tennis courts are. You get access to where the hospitals are based on your location, restaurants based on your location, with accommodations and everything else. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And each time I went somewhere, I'd always have to ask, where can I get this? Where can I do this? And so at the same time, I decided to turn my apartment that I was living in Nairobi as an Airbnb. Airbnb had just come into the market. And so I set up as an Airbnb. I was moving around a lot. I saw the challenges that I was facing as a traveler, and I was like, I asked the Aqualeisure guys to license the products to me, to give me exclusivity as a franchise of some sort for Kenya and East Africa. So I spoke to the investors and everything else, but the price that they asked for was too much. So they asked for $50,000 just to get access to the license and 20% profit share, so like agreement. But when we look at the franchise model, it's the holding companies are the ones who are doing a lot of the work, right? So when you're buying into a franchise, you're buying into a brand. So you expect that if I'm going to pay $50,000, you can imagine if I'm paying $50,000 to acquire a KFC, sort of like franchise, KFC is doing the marketing, so I don't really have to worry about that. But here I am, I'm going to have to do the marketing. I'm going to have to get the listings, the units and everything else, the restaurants, get them on board, and I'd still have to pay $20,000. So I'm not buying to a franchise. I'm setting this thing up as a whole. Your brand is not known. It's only in Zimbabwe. And so I wasn't able to proceed with that, but I still wanted to build something to make travel easier. At the same time, my Airbnb business was doing well. Remember, I grew up in Lamu, and so we had a guest house. So I knew how to sort of like run the operation.
And by this time, the Airbnb is a place you're renting out, and then you're essentially making money off of the leverage between what you can pay as rent and what you can be able to get from short-term lets
Yes.
on
yes.
property that you're already renting out.
Yes. I mean, it was one way to make money when I was traveling, and I was like, I was moving around. I'd be out of the country for like 2-3 months, and so it started doing well. I had previous experience helping my grandmother run her business. So I knew how to operate the business. And so friends started reaching out to me and they were like, can we invest in the space, right? Can you help us set up? And so I started helping people set up, that people that I knew within my circle set up their own units and their own listings. And that's what...
Doing the same sort of thing, the same sort of arbitrage. You take a
Yes,
long-term let and then you send out, you start selling short-term lets within your own long-term
Yes.
lease.
Yeah. So what we do is we had so like a framework, right? So if you wanted to invest, I'd ask, how much do you want to invest? How much are you willing to part ways with? And so based on that, we'd be like, okay, if you want to invest 500,000 Kenyan shillings, I'd probably put you up in a place that does not require 500,000 shillings to be able to pay your deposits, your rents, to be able to furnish the place. If you wanted to invest more, we'd put you in a place like Westlands, right? And we'd look at things like the occupancy rate in the market. We'd look at the average price per night, depending on the size of the unit. We'd look at what kind of units are available in the area, what kind of customers are the area receive. Is it corporate customers? Is it, in Westlands, you'll find three nights as an average sort of like period for people to stay. In places like, for example, it's probably one night or a few hours, right? So we'd do a lot of work just try and figure out where to invest to ensure that you're able to make your money. And so we'd also help you get customers by marketing your property. So we started doing that, and that turned into Luna, which basically became a vacation rental management company. And so we started supporting we started supporting people, and we were able to also, so we figured if we're going to go out for individual people, it's one thing, but it's not scaling as fast as we'd like it to scale. So we started going after people that were setting up apartment complexes. So we'll go to the realtor and we'll be like, listen, I know you're setting up this unit as a residential unit, but why don't you take 10 units and just set them up as what you call it, as short-term stays, and you would basically be able to make about 3x the same amount of money you make from just like letting out unfurnished apartments. And so we started scaling with that. We were able to support businesses, operators in Rwanda and Tanzania as well. So we had like a few units that we were supporting there. And
how were you supporting them? Had you designed a platform for supporting?
This was purely manual. Like, we just had a website. So we had cleaners in Nairobi. And so what we'd do is we knew how many units we had in a particular area. So if we had units in Westlands, we know we have several cleaners in Westlands. We know when the check-in checkouts are, so we'd rotate the cleaners. We were helping you list on platforms like Airbnb, Booking.com, just to give you more visibility. So the only thing that we needed were cleaners. So in markets where we could not necessarily get cleaners, we would work with a cleaning company. So we'd partner with a cleaning company and they'd take care of the cleaning while we run everything from the back end. And so that was also the reason as to why we built Tripitaka, now Triply in the first place. And so during this period, we're supporting a lot of businesses. And in 2019, my grandmother's business was still running, but we lost it. And so for me...
What does that mean, we lost it?
It went down because she'd moved to Nanyuki. It was very difficult to manage the units, right? It was in Lamu. And so in my head, I was like, I grew up. So to some extent, as much as we had challenges, they still respect the fact that I was taken out of Dandora because environments do make who you are, right? So if I'd spent my childhood in Dandora, I would not necessarily be the same person that I am today. So I'm still grateful for that. After she lost the business, this was late 2019, I was like, okay, Luna is doing a lot of things. Why can't we just automate everything that we're basically doing and support more people? And so we started toying around with the idea. And then 2020 happened, COVID hit. And so we were shut down. Now, back to 2019, when I decided that we're not going to have Luna as sort of like a traditional company, we're actually going to turn it into a tech platform. I knew that I had to choose in between either doing a Luna and this tech company at the same time, or choose a tech company. Because I chose a tech company, I realized that I needed to get additional resources to be able to sustain the company while it was taking off, because traditionally tech takes a long time. You have to go through building the product, which can take months. You have to pay engineers.
And so how are you funding this?
So I had savings that I basically had. And I decided that the best way to go about things was to go and set up a business that was going to make me money every month, that I would be enough money to be able to pay for things. And so at the time, I felt when I finished high school, I had a short stint at a bar where I worked as a waiter. So I was like, the bar to me made a lot of sense. It had there was like a lot of money that was just moving around, right? So, and I looked at the sales and I looked at the margins. I was like, if I start a bar, I could probably make $1 million plus a month, and I'd be able to pay anyone that I needed to pay. And so I decided I wanted to set up a nightclub.
You're not afraid of setting up things.
No, no.
You're like, let me set up first, I'll look for capital later.
Yeah. So at least I knew that I was going to be able to pay my rent and pay the people that I had within the team while we were going through this process. So I decided I want to set up a nightclub in Nanyuki. I go to Nanyuki, but Nanyuki, the nightlife scene at the time was really advanced. I didn't have that much money, and also Nanyuki was extremely competitive. It was like I'd set up now, and the person who'd set up before will either decide to upgrade sort of like their space, and we'd go one for one. So I needed to find a market that was untapped but had potential.
This is COVID year. What year is this?
This is 2019. So 2019, I knew that I wanted to do this. My mom has lost her business, so I need to do this. So I decided I'm going to set up a nightclub. So when I was selling eggs, one of the guys that I trained became a student at Karatina University. And so he was like, okay, why don't you come down to Karatina? And you remember the guy that I mentioned that, that had the cyber cafe. So when I was going to Nanyuki, I reached out to him and I basically said, this is what I want to do. I want to set up a nightclub. And for the first year, I'm going to keep 100% of the proceeds so I can pay back whatever it is I invested. And then after that, because I'll have a company running on this side, I won't be able to run it. So we can go 50-50 and you can take 50. You don't need 50%. You don't need to put anything in. I just need someone to be able to manage the nightclub because I'm going to be based in Nairobi. And so I asked him to find a place. He didn't find a place. And I was like, I don't know. I can't help you. So that's when I reached out to Kevin, who was one of the guys that was working with me when I used to sell eggs. So Kevin was a student at Karatina University. So after going to Nanyuki, I come back down to Karatina, and I go and I'm scouting, looking at the clubs, and I see this club that was really, really packed, and it was terrible. And I was like, okay, so if people are willing to come here, this guy has like 100 people. There's no proper nightlife sort of like scene here. I'm going to set up a nightclub here. And so I found a place and we got to building. So this was, we got to building and we opened on December 16th, 2019. So because I hadn't run a club before, I looked for consultants who would help me run the club. So the consultants that I found was the owner of a club back in Nyeri called Ibiza, which had now notoriously become a strip club. Because I didn't.
Nyeri has a strip club.
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, I don't know if it's still there.
Okay.
But it was called Ibiza. So when he was contracting, and because I think people today never believe that I was so young. So I was like, this cannot be the owner of the club. So I was always in the background. They assumed that it was his club that he was setting up. So the narrative of Karatina being a very, very small town was that they're setting up a strip club in Karatina. And so it started this whole fiasco. So December 16th, we opened. I went to Egypt during that period for the World Youth Forum. So December 22nd, we were shut down. Yeah, we were literally shut down.
6 days later.
6 days later, we were shut down. So it was a DC and apparently the business community was also sort of like fighting me. So people who owned bars in the area had sort of like come together to gang up on me, and apparently I was not from Karatina.
I was about to ask. The Karatina mafia checked
Yes,
in.
they did.
So here you are, 22 years old,
Yeah.
wanting to start a business, but you haven't done the basic stakeholder management.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes. So, I mean, in my head, I was like, I want to set up a business. I have capital. I go set up a business. I didn't think that I'd be facing these things. And so we were shut down during the whole period of Christmas. And so we start now going sort of like trying to figure out why we were shut down. This is January. Remember, I'd been in the background. So I'm using the consultants to basically just go and find out because they know the area. And so I go and they're basically, they go. And it's not working for some time. Now we are 3 months in. COVID has started, it's March now, 2020. COVID has started coming in. The people that I had employed, I was still paying. So I was now running out of cash. I had this other company that basically started taking off. I started hiring people. And COVID is here, and these people will not necessarily let me operate. So I decide finally, you know what, I'm going to put my face, I'm going to come forward as the business owner and try and figure out what's going on. So I knew a reporter, and I talked to her, and she was like, okay, let's see what's going on. So they did the whole story of there not being a strip club, because they went to the club, they saw the establishment, it was like, there's no way this is a strip club. And so then these guys decided to run news on the paper where women were complaining, women within the community were going to hospitals complaining that their husbands were putting them in really bad positions because of the activities that they saw within the strip club. So now there was an influx of women who were saying, our husbands are hurting us, they're breaking our backs because of that strip club. So
this is so fantastical. Okay.
Yeah, it got that bad. And so we ran the counter, and we were like, there's no strip club. They interviewed several people around the area, and they said, yeah, we've been there. There's no such thing as a strip club. And so I talked to the reporter, and I basically said, we need to do something about this. So one of the, chairman of some bar owners association came to me, and he said we need to have a conversation. And so he asked for a bribe of 500,000 shillings, which I thought was outrageous, and it does not sit well with me.
Let's fast forward to, did you get the club up and running?
I did, eventually.
You got the club up and running?
I got it.
Was this in post-COVID now? Because now it's an equal playing field. Everybody's bar has been shut down.
Yeah.
So when did the bar come up?
In October, that's when we reopened.
So you stopped paying people. I can only imagine that you've got to have to stop the cash burn.
Yeah.
But remember, you were setting up this business so that you could get cash, so that you could be able to put it in the other travel business.
Yes. So
what's happening with the travel business all this time now?
So because I don't have cash, I have to pause on the travel business, because I put everything into the club, and because I was paying people for so long, I'd literally run out of money. And I remember my landlord was one of the nicest people, the landlord of the club, and also my own landlord. Yeah, I went for months without paying my rent, and no one was on my case. And so after receiving the request for the bribe, I recorded the conversation, and I went to the governor, and I basically said, I'm receiving a bribe. I'm receiving a request for a bribe. This should not be happening. And that is when things started sort of like moving.
So your bar is running, you're getting money now?
Yes. Yeah. So.
And you're able to finance this other side?
Yes, we're able to finance this other side. I decided to go out and hire engineers now. I am not technical. I don't have a technical background whatsoever. So I request for things that do not necessarily make sense now that I look back. And we hired our first 3 engineers. And then 3 months later, I don't even have a landing page or anything that basically works, and I'm wondering what's going on. And so I reached out to my co-founder, who was an old friend, and I basically said, can you help me figure out what's going on? And luckily, he had bandwidth. He just come from another job, and he was like, okay, we can work through this. And so that is how we basically started Tripitaka, now Triply. So the whole idea was we wanted to make it easier for Kenyans to be able to book stays and experiences pay in their local currency, pay in M-Pesa, pay in installments. And at the same time, we wanted to equip short-term rental owners with the tools that they needed to be able to run a successful business. So you're not necessarily going blind. So Triply was a marketplace and an operating system for short-term rental owners for them to be able to run KYC and all of these things. So
like a Kenyan Airbnb,
yeah, like
as
a
it
Kenyan
were.
Airbnb,
And
right?
which has morphed into something more than that now. You've got travel agents.
Yeah. So the transition was, so basically what happened was during this period, we're just basically starting out. We have hires and everything else. The club business stops doing well because I am not managing it. I'm not there. Like I had to make a choice. Am I going to, because I was working Monday to Friday, and on Friday I'd take a matatu, go to Karatina, and I'd leave Karatina very early Monday morning, come back down. So I wasn't able to do all of that. So mismanagement, of course, by the management that was basically there. I lost the business, and I was now running out of money again.
This is like what, the third business that you're losing.
Yes.
You're becoming quite good at losing.
I am.
Your shirt.
I am.
Yeah, but you come back out of it.
Yes. So for this one, this one was really extreme because I just got in a car. I got auctioned. I was taken to court by my landlords at the bar. So I was in debt. I was literally down to zero. So we had to let go of some people within the company, and only 2 people remained, myself and my co-founder. So we went for months without salaries.
Which company is this? Triply?
Yeah, this is Triply, yeah. So we went for months without salaries. He had to move back home with his family, with his dad, basically, just to be able to continue running the company. Up until we started getting it to a point where we were generating enough revenue, and then we started looking for funding, given that it's a tech startup and you need a lot of money up front. So we looked for funding for a whole year. Nothing happened up until we finally got our first check. So when we got our first check, it was $50,000 by an accelerator called Baobab. We put that.
What does an accelerator do? What does that mean?
So an accelerator is basically an entity that takes on founders and capacity builds them. At the same time, it gives them initial capital to be able to start. So if you have an idea, some initial traction, if you have a product that is venture scalable meaning that it can become a $1 billion company at some point, they're able to put some money into you. So they also support you and give you access to their networks in terms of getting access to other investors. And so we got into Baobab. Getting into Baobab, getting the 50K, we were now able to decide that we were going to hire more people now. So the business was basically growing. And we were able to get into another accelerator called 500, which gave us like 150K and just a few angel investors here and there. And so the business started doing well. So this whole time we were working from my apartment. So I had a bedroom that I turned into, into like an office. So we had 4 desks. And our first investor meeting was actually there. So what happened was we were like, okay, we don't have enough money. We're not going to go to a co-working space and spend that money to get a boardroom for a whole day. So we took roll-up banners that we had, we put it all over the house. And so when the investors came, they were like, yeah, this is where we live. This is my living room. This is a dining table. This is our office. And these are the roll-up banners. They never invested. Unfortunately, we did a lot of work around it. So so after getting to Baobab, things started looking up for the company. We were able to, today we've supported around 5,000 short-term rentals during the time that we've been around. So this was since 2021.
So 5,000 short-term rentals make their bookings, guest bookings through you.
Yeah, so
you've morphed also into the travel agents business.
Yeah.
And you've got about 177 travel agents.
114. So what happened was when we were running the short-term rental business, we had a marketplace. And so when we had a marketplace, we started receiving a lot of inquiries around how, for travel packages basically. And so we were like, okay, I'm curious about travel packages. Let's get a travel agency team to come in place. And they came in and we started realizing why travel agencies are the way they are, why they're so slow, why they're so inefficient. And we started seeing challenges, right? Licensing was a challenge. You need an IATA license to be able to issue flight tickets. There's no framework. They have no systems in terms of CRMs. They managed all their contracts manually. So reaching out to a hotel took time. They had to sieve all of that. It was manual work. So for you to get, if you requested for a travel package from a travel agency, they take like 2 to 3 days before they were able to give you like a quotation. So we started building products in-house to be able to support travel agencies. Another thing that we realized was collecting payments was a nightmare for travel agencies. You have a customer that is in the US, how do you collect $10,000? You use local PSPs, they'll charge you 4%, that's $400. Your margins are around 10%, so you lose 40% of your margins on just payment charges, and then you wait for 3 days. And travel is also time sensitive. When you book a flight ticket, you don't really book it, we call it queuing. So you queue a flight ticket, you have to, you get a TTL, so it's like a deadline to pay for that particular ticket. If you don't pay for that ticket, you lose it. And what happens is the fares are always going up. Yeah. So they needed the money faster as compared to the 5 days they had to wait for the funds. So we basically integrated with payment providers in the US, in Europe, and we'd allow them to be able to get the funds faster. We got the licenses that we basically needed. We're also fortunate enough to go and to become the first travel tech company from Africa, Southeast Asia, to be able to get into YC, which is one of the most renowned accelerators in the world. So basically, they accelerated Airbnb and any other startup that you can think of that is worth something today. So through that, we were also able to get support, raise more funding, grew the team from just me and my co-founder. We are now 33 people. And the whole idea is to build the biggest travel tech company that has ever come from the continent.
That's amazing. From Dandora phase 5 to Lamu to Nanyuki to Parklands, a short stint through Parklands.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
To Zimbabwe, back to Nairobi,
yeah.
to an apartment, to very nice offices in Westlands. You've done a heck of a lot, Peter, in a very short time. How old are you now?
Turned 28. I just turned 28.
At 28.
Yeah.
You've made money, lost money, had a difficult time with family, which has, as you said earlier, impacted the way that you now relate to people.
Yeah.
And how are you handling that?
So I think one of the things that I also became, because of the childhood that I went through, is I became extremely empathetic. And that basically becomes the core of me as an individual, right? So we basically put people first, but to some extent, I do it a little bit too much, right? The fact that I don't like conflict means that a lot of things can go unanswered, basically. So it has affected my leadership in a bad way, but it has also I am hyper independent, like over independent. I think those experiences, as much as they were negative, I've always felt like I had something to prove as a human being, right? I had something to prove to my grandmother, and it has pushed me, right? I don't have a bone in me that knows how to give up. Like for me, it's put me in the worst situations. Well, up until I decide I don't want to do it anymore, no one's going to force me out of the situation. So negatively, yes, but it also formed my resilience and morphed me into the person that I am today.
I'm also hearing a lot of self-awareness of how what has impacted you personally and how it plays out in the professional space and how you relate to people. I would imagine this extends to beyond workplace relationships. I would imagine it extends to personal relationships as well.
Yeah, that's true. So hyper-independence means that I can go for months without talking to someone, not because I do not necessarily care. It's just because there was no one to talk to in the first place, right? So I formed this sort of independence around me. So it, of course, will affect your personal relationships, relationships with your partners, where you're closed and you're not necessarily used to opening up, because
romantic partners or business partners?
Both.
Okay.
Both, right? And so at the same time, I ended up becoming an avoidant of some sort. So you avoid conflicts. You can't speak when you're going through something because you're used to solving everything for yourself. Because of your hyper independence, your communication also is not necessarily the best. I think, as I could tell you, my communication is the other thing that is not is not where it's basically
Isaac
supposed to.
being your
My executive assistant.
your executive assistant, man Friday, man about town,
Yeah.
sitting here pretending he's not in the room, but he's very watching everything that you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so communication is not
Yeah.
necessarily the best. People tend to think that I do not care because I am quiet, but I care. I just do not know how to basically communicate it. My relationship with my what you call it, with my grandmother and my family is strained. I can go for months without having conversations with them. Not because I don't care, it's just because I'm not wired to speak like that. Yeah, so it does affect the way that you live, and you wonder, right, what that will look like when you decide to settle down and have kids, and what kind of father or husband that you'll basically be. But I've been more intentional over time, trying to deal with these things. Hopefully, taking the strengths and doing away with the negatives.
If I were to summarize you, Peter, everything you've been through has pretty much given you amazing grit, but also left scars. Independence as armor, faith as a lifeline, and the startups upon startup as a proving ground that's just built some major resilience. And all of that tells me that the ugly parts of life can alchemize into something really extraordinary, which is what we're seeing here with you.
Yeah.
You've been an amazing guest to have, and I really, really appreciate your honesty and your candor and sharing what has been a very difficult life at a personal level, but has yielded, what do they say? Iron strikes, what is that? What's that saying? Iron. Thank you. I knew I'd get the answer from the audience over here.
Yeah.
Iron sharpens audience. Iron sharpens iron. And you have turned out to be something really amazing.
Thank you.
I'm very impressed at a very early age.
Thank you so much.
At this point of our podcast, we usually do a session called Nitpicks on the Quick.
Okay.
I don't know if you're aware of it, but essentially we ask you very quick fire questions. So we want to hear what your answer is.
Sure.
Tell us what's the first answer that comes to mind.
Of
right?
course.
Early riser or sleep in on the weekends?
Sleeping on the weekends.
Text or phone call?
Phone call.
Cooking a meal or ordering takeout?
Cooking a meal.
What do you like to cook?
I cook a lot of things. I think my favorite meal to cook would be lasagna.
Okay. Mountains or the beach?
The beach.
Travel back in time or fast forward your life?
Fast forward my life.
Where would you go?
I'd like to look back and see everything that I've basically done, all the mistakes that I've basically made, I do not believe in regret. I believe that they formed who I am. So if I was to go back, I'm not going to change anything, right? But I'm curious as to what's going to happen in the future.
Favorite Kenyan dish?
Greens, ugali and nyama.
One thing you always carry with you?
My phone.
That's something that pretty much 90% of people who attend
would
here.
be my glasses.
You always wear that. That's not even an accessory. It's part and parcel of you.
Then it would be I feel naked without my watch.
There you go. What's your go-to stress reliever?
Do I have one? Movies?
Oh, remember you were doing movies in a 4 gig on your phone.
I still do
Yeah.
them. Yeah, so I've learned to love them.
Most inspiring place you've visited?
I can't think of a place right now. Most inspiring place I visited. I can't think of a place.
Favorite destination?
A beach somewhere. I loved Thailand.
Ireland.
Thailand.
Oh, Thailand.
Yeah.
Okay. Read the book or watch the movie?
Watch the movie.
I figured that would be it.
Yeah.
And just to sum everything up, the lady who you owed 200,000, did you end up paying her?
Yes, we sorted her eventually.
Shook hands, walked away, no police case.
I sent the money with an apology.
Peter Wachira, it's been a great pleasure having you on the podcast. We loved your candor and we'd love to have you here again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Right. From Dandora to Lamu, through family fractures, early loss, and a wild mix of luck and grit, Peter Wachira has built more than businesses. He's built himself. He's admitted what he doesn't know, chased every crack of opportunity, and somehow always risen from the rubble, stitched together by an unshakable belief that he's destined to be something. Peter is proof that resilience isn't loud or shiny. Sometimes it's just showing up again and again, especially when the world gives you no roadmap. Thanks for watching the Nitpicker Podcast, where we share interesting stories about interesting people doing interesting things. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe.